input. So in this video, we're going to talk about Judith Thompson's play Sirens, Elektra in Bosnia. Now, as the title suggests, this is an adaptation of the Elektra myth, which in Greek, from the Greek playwrights, we get in Aeschylus's Orestes, we get in Sophocles' Elektra, and we get in Euripides' Elektra. But Thompson's version is very, very different. Thompson's version is extremely unique and extremely interesting. Perhaps the most obvious immediate change is that she transitions the action from ancient Greece, specifically Mycenae, and then Athens in the third play of the Orestes. She transitions this to the early 1990s, the Bosnian Wars, following the breakup of Yugoslavia, the conflict between the Serbs, Bosnians, Croats, etc., with all of its immense horrors. I mean, mass executions, systematic use of rape as a tactic of war, regular torture, horrific violence of all kinds, and things like this, driven by ethnic and religious hatreds. So that becomes the background for Thompson's play. And actually we see that, I'll come back to the prologue, but we see this basically in scene one. We have three soldiers, Goran, Laza, and Malor, standing around, and basically they are waiting. They're members of Menelaus' army, because this conflict has pitted Menelaus against Agamemnon. Basically, they are waiting, and Menelaus would be on the Serbian side, and Agamemnon would be on the Bosnian side. So they're waiting around for Menelaus to come back and give them orders to execute these 500 Muslim prisoners that they've rounded up. And they're just doing this day after day, these mass executions, hundreds of people being shot daily because they're Muslim. And there's this debate among them because they're no longer allowed to shoot people under 16. One of them brings up the fact that they had executed someone who was younger than 14, while a journalist from the BBC was present. They were so high on meth that they didn't realize that he was a journalist who was taking pictures and filming what was going on. And so, like, they're waiting for Menelaus to come give them the order for this mass execution, to attempt to avoid bad press. It's this bizarre situation where the war has justified these horrendous atrocities for them. But there's this weird game that they play with this kid who they realize is 13, and so they're not allowed to kill him because he's under 16. They can't kill anybody under 16. His mother is being held in a prison camp over the hill because they hold all of the women. The one character, Goran, sorry, Thompson just gives the letters of their names, so I'm going to have to flip back and remember. So Goran says, "I'll tell you what, we got your women just over the hill in a kind of holiday camp. You know that, right? We don't kill women. Only your guys do that. We never hurt a woman. Only a little fun now and then. Now I heard your mother's over there. Isn't that right? So the guys and I, we have huge hearts. We're pussycats. We like to let a fella go if we can, so we thought of a game. The boy says, a game? Goran says, if you call your mother. The boy says, call my mother? Goran says, just with your voice. Just stand there and call her as loud as you can. Laza says, what the hell? Goran says, call, and if she answers, if we see her up on the crest of the hill there, you can go free. You both go free. You, your mom, and even your uncle there. So first off, it's worth noting that when Goran says, only a little fun now and then, what he's talking about is systemic gang rape of women held prisoner. So that's pretty fucked up in the first place. But it's this weird gesture where, like, he's designed this game to let this kid win his freedom, but they're not allowed to execute this kid anyway. So it's toying with a victim of this conflict, enforcing additional pain, additional suffering for this kid under the guise of showing mercy. It's a really sort of twisted and sadistic thing that's going on here. Making this kid win his freedom by calling his mother under the pretense that that's somehow doing him a favor and letting him go, as though they didn't have to let him go because of his age anyway. But that's the cruelty, that's the difficulty of this, and it's central to this play. And it becomes significantly more central later on, actually, because Cassandra, who's the Trojan prophetess, who in Greek mythology is taken from Troy by Agamemnon and brought back basically as a sex slave. In this version, she's Russian, and she and her friend basically get human trafficked into Bosnia, where they are tortured and raped and then forced into prostitution. Cassandra is purchased by both Agamemnon and Menelaus, the two enemy generals, and she manages to work out a peace deal where Agamemnon will give up control of a city that he's just captured, which will give Menelaus access to the sea, and in exchange Menelaus will stop the mass executions. Now, this plan is going swimmingly until their grandmother, Menelaus and Agamemnon's grandmother, who is off her medication because this city has been besieged and hasn't had access to medicine, she throws a plate at one of Agamemnon's soldiers, hits him in the head, and the soldiers shoot her. And then they kill hundreds of people in this city. So the deal is off. Part of the big problem with this is that Iphigenia, Agamemnon's daughter, has volunteered to be held hostage by Menelaus as surety for this deal. When the deal falls through, Menelaus orders his men to execute Iphigenia. He orders them actually to shoot her in the head, so she'll die instantly. Instead, they rape and torture her and then basically abandon her in the snow to die. They also film all of this, and they dump her body with the videotape at Clytemnestra's door. So Agamemnon does not sacrifice Iphigenia in this version. Neither does he do enough to stop her volunteering to be a hostage, knowing that Menelaus's men are capable of incredible brutality. But Clytemnestra blames Agamemnon. She assumes that he sent her to her death. And so when he returns, and actually he's pretty psychologically broken by the murder of Iphigenia, and he spends several years basically just in a cave saying nothing, with Cassandra looking after him. But when he returned, he also had a heart attack earlier in the play, and he had to have heart surgery. So he returns. Clytemnestra purposefully winds him up by describing the horrific experience of Iphigenia's final, probably hours, at which point he has another heart attack. And Clytemnestra, it says here, Clytemnestra watches. Agamemnon, are you having trouble breathing? Agamemnon, aha. Agamemnon, answer me. You're clutching your chest. Is this a heart attack? Another? Here, take my hand. Try to breathe slowly. Just try to breathe. Relax. She's at peace now. She knows you love her. Is it very painful? You are turning blue. So blue, there's no oxygen in your blood now. Your organs are failing. Can you hear? I think you can hear. I know you can. I'm watching you die. What you've done to your daughter has finally killed you. I've thought about this moment many, many times. I've breathed revenge, and now the gods are with me. I will not have to suffer the consequences of killing you. I will live out my life a free woman, free to mourn my daughter for the rest of my days, to bring flowers to her grave, free, finally, of my feelings for you, my hate for you, which began as a white-hot ember and grew into a volcano, always alive, roiling with fury, ready to erupt. I know she forgave you because that's who she is, but I cannot forgive you. But you have taken the easy way out. You're dying of a broken heart. Why hasn't it killed me? So Clytemnestra watches Agamemnon die and makes no attempt to help him. Elektra, who comes in immediately after he dies, and who, in this version, so she resents Clytemnestra because Clytemnestra loves Iphigenia more. But in this version, Elektra also hates Iphigenia because she's jealous of Iphigenia for having taken away Clytemnestra's love. So that's an interesting dimension. And I'm not going to talk that much more about that. But basically, Elektra comes in immediately after Agamemnon dies, and she blames Clytemnestra for letting him die. And later in the play, like further down the line in their relationship, they've been estranged. Elektra comes back, and she drugs Clytemnestra before putting her in the bath to wash her hair. And it says here, Clytemnestra is losing consciousness. As Clytemnestra speaks, Elektra pushes her mother's face down in the water. Clytemnestra, sleepy as she is, fights, kicking, and at one point almost flips herself out, soaking Elektra. But Elektra applies full force and lies over her mother in the bath, drowning her. Elektra is out of breath, gasping. Her mother floats. Elektra lies on the floor. So in this version, that's the way that the murder is carried out, is Elektra drugs and then drowns Clytemnestra. And interestingly enough, Orestes is completely innocent here. He actually blames Elektra for killing Clytemnestra. So unlike in the Greek myth, where Orestes is the one who typically actually does the murdering, here it's Elektra without even Orestes as a co-conspirator. So all of these are really interesting changes, but I think one of the most interesting things is this ethical and metatheatrical framing of the play. And it starts from the prologue, where we have three Furies enter. And that's in itself really interesting, because there's almost an echo of the opening of Shakespeare's Macbeth, where the three witches enter, and we have the famous bubble, bubble, toil and trouble speech. Here we have a prologue by the three Furies, and it's brilliantly written too. We are the Furies, the Furies, the Furies, the feared, the flaming, ferocious, the Furies. We soar through the sky, yes, we fly through the years, 10,000 years, over wars, under lives, in between man and wife, mother and child, sister and brother, sister and sister. And we see what we see, and when we see one of ours, mother, daughter, woman, slain, slaughtered, desecrated, oh, we froth at the mouth, and we fly, we catch, we tie him up in poisonous snakes to the stake of his conscience, conscience, conscience. Oh, we flame, oh, we fire, oh, we burn him to ashes, ashes, ashes. Just watch us, beware, beware. We are here for all mothers, for all daughters. We avenge, we pursue, we will never give up till we have you, beware. So it's beautiful. Brilliant fucking opening. But we have the stakes set here, and so what we get in this play is Elektra's punishment, Elektra's hell. And it is this sort of Prometheus-bound type situation where, so in Prometheus Bound, Prometheus is tied to the rock, and he's doomed to have an eagle come and eat his liver every day, and a new one grows back. Elektra, her hell, her punishment by the Furies, is that every day she will tell her story to these three soldiers, who will then torture and murder her. And what Elektra says, this is later, we get this partway through. Elektra says, unless I'm somehow redeemed, and the Furies say redeemed. The Furies echo a lot of the things that especially Elektra says. Elektra says, yes, there's a possibility of some kind of salvation here, of mercy, and that is why you are here. The Furies say I can only be redeemed by you, by your mercy, and you will only know if I deserve mercy by hearing my story. Will you listen to my story? Will you be my witness? I can still see her face, her fear, her eyes imploring. Her last words were, I love you, my girl. So, this is an interesting bit, because on the one hand, Elektra is talking to these three Serbian soldiers, the ones who are mass executing these Muslim men, but she's also talking to the audience. We, the audience, become implicated in this. So when it says, when she says, and that is why you are here, you'll only know if I deserve mercy by hearing my story. This implicates the audience in Elektra's violence and in this quest for forgiveness. And because it implicates us in Elektra's violence, which in this version of the myth is deeply tied to the racial and ethnic hatreds, the tremendous barbaric violence of the Bosnian conflict, we're also implicated in that. We're implicated in humanity's capacity for brutality. And so this takes us to the end of the play, actually. The soldiers play the same game with Elektra that they had played with the young boy at the beginning. They make her stand and call for Clytemnestra, call for her mother, and if Clytemnestra appears at the top of the hill, they will let her go. She doesn't appear, so they shoot her. And the stage directions here say, he shoots her again in the head to make sure. She calls again. Mama! And Clytemnestra appears at the crest of the hill. She holds out her hand. Elektra sees her, crawls to her, they embrace. And then the epilogue. The Furies. Shall we forgive? Fury 1, as her mother has. Furies, set her free. Fury 2, as her mother wants. Furies, show her mercy. Fury 3, as she has shown you her story. The Furies, you are her witness. 'Tis for you, only you to choose. So the epilogue really drives home that metatheatrical responsibility. It is up to you, only you, the viewers of this play, can choose whether or not there can be forgiveness for this heinous violence. Both the heinous violence of Elektra murdering her mother and the heinous violence of the genocidal conflicts that humanity is perfectly capable of carrying out.